This is the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
There's no intention to offend anyone by referring to a team by the name that they proudly worn since day one. And they chose that name with pride in our native ancestry.
Recently, Sarah Palin spoke out in favor of the Washington Redskins nickname. And now she's backing a former Redskins star for Congress. Clint Didier, the Super Bowl winning tight end, is here to talk about his run for Congress in Washington State. Governor Palin endorses a candidate in Louisiana with ties to Duck Dynasty. A brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson is coming up from Virginia. And just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman in Missouri. First, we say hello to Clint Didier, a man who won 2 world titles as a member of the Washington Redskins, and now he's trying to go back to D.C. to fight for us. He's running for Congress in the 4th District of Washington State. Clint Didier, welcome to the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio.
Well, thank you, Kevin. It is a pleasure to be on the Mama Grizzly Radio.
You are running for Congress in the 4th District in Washington State, and recently Governor Sarah Palin endorsed your candidacy. That's got to be a nice boost.
It was a great boost. Within 24 hours, we had over 5,000 likes, the increase in revenue coming into the campaign. And I'm traveling today. I went to 3 different events, and people said congratulations on the endorsement. These people of 4th Congressional in the state of Washington love Sarah Palin, and who wouldn't? She stands for liberty, and that's what this country is all about.
I've heard you described as a combination of John Wayne, Davy Crockett, and George Washington. So you say, what's not to like with Governor Palin? What's not to like with Clint Didier?
Well, I'll just say this. I'm a simple individual that got to live the American dream because of other people's sacrifice. I want to make sure that our kids have that same opportunity. And I'm willing to fight to my last breath to make sure that I do everything I can to preserve it. So every child to come has that shot at the American dream, and it's freedom. Charlton Heston hit it best. The American dream is not success or riches. It's freedom. And freedom is what entitles every American the freedom of thought, the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of worship, and the freedom of ingenuity. Can you imagine where we'd be at in this world today if we didn't have America? Think about all the newest technologies. Where did they come from? America. Because we're allowed to dream and think and create. And that's why we're special, is because we're free.
You are a former NFL star, 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Redskins. What is it with athletes and those in sports that are conservatives? We've had Howard Johnson, Jerry Kramer, Pat McCaskey, to name a few, on this show, all good conservatives. You see so many that have gone into politics, Steve Largent, J.C. Watts, Tom Osborne. It can't be coincidence. Is there something about the lessons of teamwork and the necessity to follow certain rules of conduct in sports on such a high level that shape a conservative attitude?
That's some of it, yes. But I think the heart and soul of it is competition. If you realize every athlete, they first got to make the team. Then you're competing to be a champion. This competition, as much as the left wants to take it out of America, is what America is all about. We love to compete. We love to win. But more importantly, we love to compete. And that is what about athletes that brings them into the conservative mold because, you know, when you're a champion, there's no equality in being number one. You're number one for a reason because you worked hard for it, you've pursued, you've dreamed, and you accomplished. And it's competition that is what drives Americans to succeed. And that's what we got to keep in America's hearts, is the thought of competition and the aspect of pursuing your dreams and knowing that the only way to achieve them is to compete.
As for some of the specifics in your race for Congress, you've said this is the most dangerous time for the American Republic since World War II. That's quite a statement. Why do you feel this way, and what can we do to keep our freedom and liberty alive?
Well, I believe we're in this predicament because we've allowed these career politicians, and I'm talking about the establishment in the Republican Party, and the establishment in the Democrat Party to rule the roost for the American people. And they've sent us into an oblivion. And you look back in history, you look back in 1916 when Woodrow Wilson was president, and he had us on the doorstep of the League of Nations. And thank God we had a senator from Idaho by the name of Bora that followed him and heeded the words of George Washington, no entangling alliances. And three times that came to the Senate floor vote, 3 times it was voted down. After the third vote, Woodrow Wilson shortly thereafter had a stroke and died. Today, we're all wrapped up in the United Nations. The United Nations are setting the precedent for America, for all this environmental movement, for the Common Core education, for everything that's being implemented in America today. It's not coming from America. It's coming from the United Nations. And it's because we're so involved in the United Nations, and we're allowing all of these agencies. In 1960, we had a little over 100 agencies. Today, we have over 1,300 agencies. They're pulling this information out of the UN, and they're bringing it here in the United States. But most importantly, we've never had this kind of debt hanging over the American people's head before. It was reported at Freedom Works when I was down there at Jackson Hole a couple months ago that there's an argument about how much we're in debt with the unfunded liabilities of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and our debt. And there's talk of about 120 or 130 trillion. It was reported at Freedom Works that we're 205 trillion in the hole. And people don't get an idea what a trillion is. Let me give you an analogy. A billion, let's talk about a billion. A billion seconds ago was 1959. I'm a billion seconds old. A billion minutes ago, Jesus Christ was walking on the face of the earth. A billion hours ago, it was in the Stone Age. The dinosaurs were on the earth. It takes 1,000 billion to make a trillion. We got to get a grasp on the magnitude of where we're at. This is why we're in such a predicament at this state of history of America. And the only way out of this is we have to get back to sacrifice. That's why we became a great nation, because people were willing to sacrifice everything for freedom. We have to be willing to do the same as Americans today. And it has to come from example. I quit taking farm subsidies 4 years ago. I'll never go back. I've never been so liberated as a farmer. We have to all be willing to give it up and quit taking from this federal government. If we want our children to have freedom, we have to be willing to do it.
You've pledged to fight for our farmers. They need the help with all of this intrusion from the government, which has hurt them. What are your plans for agriculture? And tell us about your farming background.
Well, when I got out of the NFL, my wife and I bought our first farm. We're now farming 1,000 acres. When I was going in and registering my acres, I was told what I could plant behind vegetables. I was told what I could do behind this and that. Since I've liberated myself from the Farm Bill, which no longer should be called the Farm Bill because direct countercyclical payments were taken away from the farmers, now all available to the farmers is an insurance plan that is in direct competition with the free market. Let's call this what it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's a welfare bill. 85% of this bill now is food stamps, child nutrition, and temporary assistance for needy families. It is not a farm bill. It's an injustice to put that on the back of the farmers. The farmers only are getting now a NAP insurance plan out of this farm bill. The farmers need to be liberated. Government controls the markets with their ability to set the price on commodities. Back in the 90s when I got out of the NFL, the USDA said plant wheat fence post to fence post to fence post. Every farmer planted fence post to fence post wheat. When harvest came, the wheat market was just glutton full, and the price went down through the floor. It drove out. It killed all of our drylanders out here. The drylander towns, they dried up. The machinery business went out of business. There was no money because the price of wheat went through the floor. The government is dictating our prices. Let the private sector, let the free market set the price. Get the government out of farming. Get the government out of our health care. Get the government out of our retirement funds. And we will be a far better nation if we get this government back into constraints the Constitution intended it to be instead of where it's at today. And it's just in every aspect of our lives.